July 12, 1943, 2:27 p.m., southern perimeter of Prokhorovka. A Panzer IV rumbles toward the Soviet trench line, 50 tons of steel grinding through dust and death. Machine gun fire tears the air. Men scramble for cover that does not exist. In a shallow crater, an infantryman lifts a weapon his own squad mocked as worthless, a 2-meter anti-tank rifle built for trucks, not battle tanks. His hands tremble. The PTRS-41 weighs 21 kilograms, feels impossibly long, absurdly inadequate against what is coming. Every anti-tank gun on this ridge lies destroyed. Radio calls for reinforcement go unanswered. The line is collapsing. If this flank breaks, German armor encircles thousands. The entire southern front falls. The war drags on for years. Millions more die. He aims at a target no wider than his palm. The driver's vision slit, barely visible through smoke and dust, protected by steel and reinforced glass. A shot, doctrine says, is impossible. A target marksman missed 4 times out of 5. He remembers his last attempt. The round sailed wide. The tank kept advancing. Men died. Now, there is no second chance, no backup, no miracle coming. One breath, one trigger pull, one impossible shot that decides whether this ridge holds or vanishes beneath German treads. His finger tightens. The weight of thousands rests on a bullet. Can a 2-meter rifle designed for thin armor really pierce the steel fortress protecting a tank driver? Can desperation and a mocked weapon stop what engineering designed to be unstoppable? In summer 1943, Operation Citadel detonates across the Kursk salient, the largest armored collision in human history. Over 2,000 tanks converge on open steppe where infantry have nowhere to hide. No forests, no buildings, just endless grass, naked earth, and the machinery of industrial death. The Wehrmacht advances with Panzer IVs, Panthers, and Tigers, machines engineered to be invincible. Their armor deflects standard anti-tank rounds like raindrops. Their 88mm cannons erase entire squads with single shots. Their treads crush men, equipment, hope. Soviet infantry carry Mosin Nagant rifles firing 7.62mm rounds that bounce off tank armor like pebbles striking fortress walls. Machine guns are useless. Grenades require suicide runs. Anti-tank rifles, designed for half-tracks and armored cars, shatter against main battle tank plating. The mathematics are brutal. One Tiger can destroy a dozen T-34s before taking damage. One Panther can hold a road against an entire infantry company. German engineering evolves faster than Soviet factories can respond. New armor appears on the battlefield before doctrine manuals are written. Anti-tank gun crews die before they finish aiming. Artillery observers are killed before they call fire missions. Reinforcements arrive to find positions already overrun. Infantry face an impossible equation. Watch tanks roll past and kill everyone behind you, or find a way to fight machines with tools designed for men. The stakes are existential. If the southern flank collapses, German spearheads will encircle entire Soviet armies, hundreds of thousands of soldiers cut off, starved, destroyed. The Eastern Front could stall for another year, maybe 2. Millions more will die in the grinding arithmetic of attrition warfare. Moscow knows this. Berlin knows this. And the men in the trenches know this. Survival demands something radical, something dangerous, something the manuals never imagined. A forbidden idea emerges from desperation. Stop targeting the armor, target the humans inside. The PTRS-41 anti-tank rifle, mocked, dismissed, considered obsolete against modern armor, enters combat not as an anti-tank weapon, but as something entirely new. A heavy sniper rifle, a precision instrument capable of reaching through steel to kill the men controlling the machines. It violates doctrine, it defies logic, it seems impossible. But when every conventional weapon fails, the impossible becomes the only option left. The question is not whether it can work. The question is whether anyone will survive long enough to prove it. When steel becomes invincible, how do you kill the flesh commanding it? The tanks close like a steel noose tightening around a throat. Diesel engines roar across the steppe, a sound felt in the chest before it reaches the ears. Dust plumes rise like the smoke of funeral pyres. The ground shakes with each advancing meter. A Panzer IV shell detonates 30 meters from the Soviet trench line. The explosion is not loud. It is obliterating. Dirt erupts in a black geyser. The shockwave hits like a fist. Shrapnel screams through the air, invisible and lethal. Men press their faces into earth that offers no protection. Ears ring. Vision blurs. The taste of cordite and blood fills mouths. The tank advances. 80 meters. 70. 60. Machine gun rounds rake the trench edge with mechanical precision. Bullets punch through sandbags, shred canvas, ricochet off helmets with sounds like hammer strikes on anvils. A soldier rises to return fire. His head jerks backward. He drops without making a sound. No cry, no last words, just silence and a body. 50 meters. 40. The retreat route collapses under concentrated shell fire. A supply truck explodes, ammunition cooking off in staccato bursts. Flames leap into the sky. Thick black smoke pours upward, marking the position for every German gun within range. Radios crackle with desperate, overlapping transmissions. Requests for fire support, calls for medical evacuation, orders to hold position at all costs. None of it matters. There is no fire support. The guns are gone. There is no evacuation. The trucks are burning. There is only the order to hold, and the certainty that holding means dying. Ammunition dwindles. Soldiers count remaining rounds with shaking hands. Anti-tank guns lie silent, crews dead, scattered, or fleeing. The defensive line that held a battalion now defends with one understrength squad. One squad against an entire platoon of German armor. The steppe shakes, not from individual impacts now, but from continuous tremors that never stop. The earth itself seems to scream. Diesel fumes mix with cordite and burning flesh, creating a toxic fog that clings to lungs and throat. The infantryman grips the PTRS-41, feeling every kilogram of its absurd weight. Around him, men dig deeper into dirt that cannot save them. Some pray to gods they stopped believing in months ago. Some weep silently, tears cutting clean lines through dust-caked faces. Some stare at nothing, eyes open but seeing only memory, home, family, a life that feels like someone else's dream. 30 meters. The lead panzer is close enough to see details. Heat shimmer rising from the engine deck. Individual links on the treads. The commander's head visible in the cupola, scanning for targets. Close enough to hear everything. The clatter of metal on metal. The grinding of gears. The hiss of hydraulics. Close enough to smell diesel and hot steel. Close enough to die. If this tank breaks through, everyone behind this position is finished. Not killed in combat, overrun, crushed beneath treads or cut down by follow-on infantry. No heroic last stand, just bodies ground into mud. The soldier shifts his grip on the PTRS. His shoulder already aches from the weight. His hands shake, From fear or exhaustion, he cannot tell anymore. He steadies his breathing. In, out, in, hold. And remembers his training, the impossible math, the forbidden tactics. The shot no one believes will work. 25 meters. The Panzer's machine gun swings toward his position. Time fractures into heartbeats. How many seconds remain before steel erases flesh from existence? The PTRS-41 is not a weapon. It is a gamble wrapped in 21 kilograms of steel. 2 meters long, unwieldy, brutal. Firing a 14.5 by 114 millimeter cartridge designed to penetrate 25 millimeters of armor at 500 meters, impressive against half-tracks and reconnaissance vehicles. Completely inadequate against a Panzer IV's 50 millimeter frontal plate, sloped to double its effective thickness. By every military standard, the weapon in his hands is useless against what is coming. But armor is not uniform. Engineers prioritize protection where threats are expected. The front, the sides, the turret face. Everywhere else, steel thins to save weight, to preserve mobility, to keep the machine from collapsing under its own mass. Weak points exist. Vision slits, driver ports, periscopes, engine grills, track assemblies, turret roofs where a few millimeters of steel separate the crew from the sky. These are not targets. They are surgical strike points. The PTRS team operates like surgeons under fire. Precision, timing, and cold calculation against overwhelming violence. The spotter lies prone beside the shooter, binoculars pressed to his face, voice low and steady despite the chaos. He tracks turret movement, measures distance, calculates wind, watches for blind angles, the split seconds when the tank commander cannot see their position. He times everything. Reloads, shot intervals, hull traverses, the rhythm of death approaching. Range 300, crosswind left, 1 meter per second. Driver's block exposed for 8 seconds. 8 seconds. The difference between a shot and annihilation. The shooter adjusts. At 300 meters, a 14.5 millimeter round drops nearly a meter from bore axis. Crosswinds push the bullet sideways. Heat shimmer rising from the tank's engine distorts perception. Dust obscures the target. And the recoil. The recoil is savage. A brutal kick that bruises shoulders through padding, rattles teeth, leaves ears ringing for hours. Fire this weapon wrong, and it injures the shooter as effectively as the enemy. Every shot is a calculated risk, a chess move made under machine gun fire. Fire too early, the tank turns its armor. Your round bounces harmlessly. You die. Fire too late, the machine gun finds you. You die. Fire from the same position twice, artillery erases you. You die. The doctrine is simple, unforgiving. Blind, immobilize, relocate. Blind the driver, shoot through vision blocks. The tank loses forward visibility, slows, becomes vulnerable to follow-on attacks. Immobilize the tracks. Target suspension components, drive sprockets, return rollers. A disabled tank is a stationary pillbox, dangerous but trapped. Relocate immediately, before the commander identifies your position, before infantry support arrives, before artillery adjusts fire and turns your hiding spot into a crater. Soviet training manuals list target priorities with clinical precision. Priority 1. Driver's vision port. A reinforced slit approximately 15 centimeters wide, protected by thick glass and steel framing. Thin enough for 14.5 millimeter penetration. A direct hit kills the driver or blinds the tank permanently. One shot, one kill, one chance. Priority 2. Turret periscopes. Commanders rely on visibility to fight effectively. destroy their optics, and they operate deaf, blind, panicked. Priority 3. Engine grills. Thin protective mesh over critical cooling systems. Incendiary rounds can ignite fuel vapors, oil mist, hydraulic fluid. The tank does not explode. It cooks from the inside. Priority 4. Track assemblies. Immobilization transforms a predator into prey. A stationary tank is a target every gun on the battlefield can engage. The mathematics are merciless. At 300 meters, a driver's vision block is a target 15 centimeters wide. Wind, movement, heat distortion, dust, recoil, all conspire against accuracy. A trained marksman, under ideal conditions, hits 1 in 3 shots. In combat, under fire, exhausted, terrified, hands shaking, the ratio drops to 1 in 5, sometimes worse. But 1 hit is enough. 1 tungsten core round through a vision block, 1 incendiary into an engine compartment. 1 lucky shot that transforms a 50-ton predator into a blind, burning, immobilized target. The PTRS does not destroy tanks. It disables them, cripples them, turns machines into metal coffins, forces crews into impossible choices: stay inside and suffocate in smoke, or evacuate and die under fire. It is asymmetric warfare distilled into mathematics and desperation. An infantryman with a long rifle challenging the most powerful machines ever built. The Soviet instructor's words echo in the shooter's memory. You cannot kill the tank, but you can kill the man driving it. And without the man, the tank is just expensive scrap metal. Theory sounds simple in a classroom. Practice is different. The shooter watches the Panzer advance. 20 meters now. The machine gun swings toward his position. He has seconds, not minutes, not a comfortable window, seconds to make a shot that violates physics, logic, and survival instinct. His spotter's voice cuts through the chaos, calm as death itself. Driver's block visible. 3 seconds. 2. Fire. The trigger breaks. Can human skill overcome steel when mathematics offer no margin for error? The mockery begins 3 weeks earlier, far behind the lines where men can still afford to laugh. A supply depot. Afternoon heat. Dust hanging motionless in stale air. An infantry sergeant examines newly issued PTRS rifles with the expression of a man handed a shovel and told to dig through concrete. He lifts one, feels its absurd weight, its ungainly length. The weapon is longer than he is tall. Around him, soldiers unleash the only weapon more powerful than artillery: ridicule. Stalin's fishing rod, a telephone pole with delusions. Good for cleaning chimneys. One mechanic suggests using it as scaffolding. Another jokes about mounting it on a truck because no human should carry something that size. Laughter ripples through the group, tired men finding humor in absurdity because humor is cheaper than hope. The sergeant does not laugh. He stares at the weapon, turning it over in calloused hands, thinking. He knows what the manuals say. Anti-materiel rifle, designed for light vehicles. Effective range, 800 meters against unarmored targets. Obsolete against modern tank armor. But manuals are written by men in Moscow who do not stand in trenches while Panthers advance. He sets the rifle down carefully. Too carefully. The room quiets. What if we stop using it the way they intended? An officer looks up from paperwork. Explain? The manuals say shoot horizontally at vehicle flanks, at armor. Correct? What if we shoot downward, at the men inside? The room goes silent. Not the comfortable silence of agreement, The dangerous silence of men hearing something that violates every rule they know. The officer shakes his head slowly. The doctrine gets us killed. The sergeant's voice is flat, stripped of emotion. Panthers laugh at doctrine. Tigers crush doctrine under their treads. We need something else. He crouches, sketches a diagram in the dirt floor with a broken stick. A building, a tank passing beneath. An angle of fire. No manual considers. Tanks are designed to fight forward. Armor thickest at the front, thinnest on top. Commanders watch for threats at eye level. Anti-tank guns, Panzerfausts, mines buried in roads. No one expects fire from above. No one armors the roof enough to stop 14.5mm tungsten core fired at steep angles. The officer studies the diagram. And when the tank returns fire, when infantry storms your elevated position, then we relocate, fast. We shoot once, maybe twice, and disappear before they react. That is not in the doctrine. No, comrade, it is not. The sergeant meets the officer's eyes. But neither is losing. The idea violates every tactical principle in the manual. PTRS teams operate prone, concealed, firing horizontally. Climbing exposed buildings to shoot downward is reckless, suicidal, insane. But war has a way of turning insanity into innovation. 3 days later, near Oboyan, the theory meets reality. A German probe advances down a narrow road. Infantry, half-tracks. A Panther leading the column, turrets scanning methodically, crew experienced and cautious. They fire at suspected ambush positions, suppress potential threats, move with practiced precision. A PTRS team climbs the skeletal remains of a 3-story granary, half collapsed from previous shelling, walls pockmarked with bullet holes. The structure groans under their weight. Every step risks collapse. But the top floor offers a clear view of the road below. The Panther passes beneath, turret focused forward, commander visible in his cupola, scanning left and right. He never looks up. The shooter waits, heart hammering, sweat stinging his eyes. Range, 40 meters. Angle, 70 degrees downward. Target, the thin roof plate behind the commander's cupola, where steel sacrifices thickness for weight savings. He fires. The 14.5mm incendiary tracer round punches through the turret roof like paper. Inside, the bullet fragments in a shower of tungsten shards and burning phosphorus. Wiring insulation ignites instantly. Hydraulic fluid mist catches fire. Fabric seat cushions smolder, producing toxic smoke. Within seconds, the turret fills with choking fumes. The turret stops rotating mid-traverse. The main gun falls silent. The engine continues running, but no one is giving orders. No one can see. No one can breathe. Hatches burst open. Crewmen stumble out coughing, disoriented, hands clawing at faces. Smoke pours from every opening. German infantry scramble to provide cover, but panic spreads faster than orders. The Panther sits motionless in the center of the road, abandoned, blocking the entire column. The PTRS team descends through the granary's collapsing interior and vanishes into rubble before German mortars find the range. By the time shells begin falling, they are gone. Relocated, invisible, already hunting the next target. When? The after-action report reaches headquarters. Officers stare at the page as if the words are written in a foreign language. The team engaged from above? The sergeant nods. From above. That is not in the doctrine. No, comrade, it is not. But the Panther remains disabled. The road remains blocked. The German probe stalls for 3 hours while engineers clear the vehicle. And the impossible becomes repeatable. Within days, the forbidden tactic spreads like fire through dry grass. Other teams experiment. Second-story windows, rooftops, hillsides overlooking tank routes. They target vision blocks, periscopes, turret rings, engine grills. Every weak point armor cannot protect. The German advance does not stop. But it slows. Commanders hesitate. Tanks travel with infantry escorts scanning buildings, not just roads. Crews close hatches tighter, reducing visibility, increasing vulnerability to close-range ambush. Fear becomes a weapon more powerful than the rifle itself. Infantry realize something profound. They can reach inside machines once believed untouchable. They can kill the flesh, commanding the steel. The PTRS is no longer just an anti-tank rifle. It is psychological warfare made tangible. A tool that transforms mockery into terror, desperation into innovation, defeat into possibility. And, on a ridge near Prokhorovka, one soldier prepares to prove the concept again, not against a Panther, but against something far worse, a Tiger. When desperation rewrites doctrine, how thin is the line between genius and madness? July 12, 1943, 3:14 p.m. The same ridge, the same trench. The German assault forms along a tree line 600 meters distant. Engines rumble, dust rises. Infantry dismount from half-tracks, forming assault groups behind a screen of armor. At the center of the formation, a Tiger I advances, 57 tons of steel, nearly impervious to every weapon on the Soviet line. Its 88mm cannon can destroy targets over a kilometer away. Its frontal armor is 100mm thick, sloped to deflect even the heaviest anti-tank rounds. Standard PTRS tactics are useless against a Tiger. No vision block is large enough. No side armor is thin enough. No angle offers a clean shot. But the infantryman is no longer following standard tactics. He lies prone in a shallow crater, the PTRS heavy against his shoulder, bipod legs dug into dirt. His spotter crouches beside him, binoculars trained on the Tiger, voice calm despite the chaos around them. Range 400, wind left to right, 2 meters per second, Driven's block visible. The shooter adjusts his aim. The Tiger's driver vision port is a narrow slit reinforced with thick glass and steel framing. It is designed to withstand shrapnel, debris, small arms fire. It is not designed to stop a 14.5mm tungsten core round traveling at 1,000 meters per second. The shooter inhales slowly, exhales halfway, holds. The trigger breaks. The rifle bucks violently. The muzzle blast kicks up a cloud of dust. The report echoes across the steppe like a thunderclap. The round flies. At 400 meters, the bullet drops nearly a meter from its initial trajectory. Wind pushes it slightly right. Heat distortion bends light, warping perception, but the math holds. The round strikes the driver's vision block dead center. Armored glass shatters. Steel framing deforms. Inside the tank, the driver recoils, hands jerking the control levers. The Tiger lurches left, tracks grinding, engine roaring. The driver is not dead, but he is blind, disoriented, hands pressed to his face, vision swimming with fractured light and searing pain. The tank slews sideways, losing momentum, turret swinging wildly as the commander tries to assess the threat. The shooter reloads. The spotter calls a new target. Engine grill, incendiary loaded. The second shot flies. This round is different. A tracer with an incendiary core designed to ignite on impact. It punches through the thin mesh covering the Tiger's engine compartment, striking the air filter housing. Inside, oil mist lingers. Fuel vapors accumulate. The incendiary core ignites both. Flames erupt from the grill. Smoke pours from vents. The engine temperature gauge spikes. Automatic fire suppression systems activate, flooding the compartment with halon gas. But the damage is done. The Tiger stops. The engine idles, coughing, misfiring. Smoke continues pouring from the rear deck. The crew faces a terrible decision. Stay inside a burning tank or evacuate under incoming fire. Hatches pop open. Crewmen scramble out, uniforms singed, faces blackened by smoke. German infantry rush forward to provide cover, dragging the crew towards safety. But the Tiger sits motionless, disabled, blocking the road. Behind it, other panzers hesitate. The assault formation loses cohesion. Tank commanders scan for threats, uncertain where the fire came from, unwilling to advance past a burning Tiger. Soviet artillery observers adjust fire. Shells begin falling on the stalled German column. Explosions ripple across the tree line. Smoke and dust obscure visibility. The German advance falters. Momentum breaks. The disabled Tiger becomes an unplanned barricade, stalling the German advance just long enough for Soviet armor to counterattack. The infantryman lowers the PTRs, hands numb from recoil, ears ringing, heart hammering. Around him, Soviet infantry remain frozen, staring at the burning Tiger, unable to believe what they just witnessed. A 2-meter rifle, a single shot. A machine designed to be unstoppable, stopped. The spotter grips the shooter's shoulder. No words. Just a nod. They collapse the bipod, sling the rifle, and crawl toward a new position before German mortars respond. Behind them, the Tiger burns, and the ridge holds. What separates a miracle from mathematics when both cost everything? When the shelling finally stops, the battlefield is silent in a way that feels unnatural. No engines, no gunfire, just wind and distant voices calling for medics. The southern perimeter holds, barely. Across the steppe, dozens of German tanks sit defaulted, some blinded, tracks shattered, periscopes destroyed. Others abandoned, crews evacuated under fire, machines left burning or silent. Not all were killed by PTRS fire. Artillery, anti-tank guns, and close assault teams contributed to the carnage. But the PTRS teams bought time. Minutes. Hours. Enough for reinforcements to arrive. Enough for artillery to reposition. Enough for the line to stabilize. Soviet lines, battered but intact, hold until reinforcements arrive. The infantryman sits in a shell crater, the PTRS rifle lying beside him. His shoulder throbs. His hands shake. He cannot hear properly. His ears ring with a high-pitched whine that will not fade. Around him, other PTRS teams are missing. Some died during relocation, caught by machine gun fire as they moved between positions. Others were killed by counter-battery fire, German artillery zeroing in on muzzle flashes. One team was overrun when infantry reached their position before they could withdraw. A sergeant counts survivors. 17 PTRS teams deployed that morning. 9 remain. The shooter stares at the Tiger, still smoldering 400 meters away. Smoke drifts from its engine deck. Scorch marks blacken the rear hull. Hatches hang open like wounds. He does not feel victorious. He feels tired, hollow, aware that his shot did not win the battle. It prevented a collapse. It delayed the inevitable. But delay mattered. Every minute the Germans lost allowed Soviet reinforcements to arrive. Every disabled tank was one fewer machine crushing infantry positions. Every blinded driver was one fewer threat advancing toward the ridge. Victory is measured not in glory, but in survival. Not in triumph, but in the absence of total defeat. Nearby, several PTRS teams lie still in craters, the cost of standing against steel. A medic passes by, carrying a wounded soldier on a stretcher. The man's leg is mangled, face gray with shock. He will live, maybe. The shooter looks away. Nearby, soldiers strip ammunition and supplies from the dead. Standard procedure, practical, necessary. The spotter sits beside the shooter, silent for a long time, then finally speaks. "You hit it." The shooter nods. Through the vision block. Another nod. From 400 meters. Yes. The spotter exhales slowly. They told us it was impossible. The shooter does not respond. He is thinking about the German driver, a man he never saw, a man whose name he will never know, a man who is probably dead now, or blind, or broken, a man who was just doing his job, advancing because he was ordered to advance, fighting because his country told him to fight. The shooter picks up the PTRS rifle. It feels heavier now. Not physically, its weight has not changed, but the knowledge of what it can do, what it did, settles into his bones like lead. He realizes the weapon mattered less than the will behind it. In a war of steel and strategy, a single decision in the dirt shaped the fate of a ridge. He thinks about the mockery, the jokes. Stalin's broomstick, a useless pole. The rifle is not useless, but that does not make using it easier. A runner arrives with new orders. The unit will hold position through the night. Reinforcements are moving up. German forces are regrouping for another assault at dawn. The soldier nods. He will be here. The rifle will be ready. But he does not sleep. He cannot. Because every time he closes his eyes, he sees the tiger, sees the driver's vision block shattering, sees smoke pouring from hatches, sees men scrambling to escape. And he wonders how many more times he will have to pull that trigger before the war ends. Victory feels muted, heavy, nothing like triumph. How many times can a man pull the trigger before the weight becomes unbearable? The German High Command does not ignore the reports. Officers compile after-action summaries from tank crews describing unexplained damage, vision blocks shattered from oblique angles, periscopes destroyed by long-range fire, engine compartments ignited without direct hits. At first, the reports are dismissed as exaggeration, combat stress, mechanical failure misattributed to enemy action. Tanks do not get sniped. Infantry rifles cannot penetrate armored vehicles. The idea is absurd. But the reports continue, and the evidence accumulates. German engineers respond quickly. In August 1943, they begin retrofitting tanks with Schürzen, thin steel skirts mounted along hull sides and turret faces to deflect 14.5mm rounds. Officially, they are designed to deflect shaped charge warheads from handheld anti-tank weapons. Unofficially, they provide additional protection against 14.5mm fire targeting weak points and vision slits. The modification is not perfect. Schürzen add weight, reduce maneuverability, and can be torn off by rough terrain. But they work. PTRS effectiveness drops. Shooters must adjust tactics, targeting areas where skirts do not reach: turret roofs, engine decks, track assemblies. The arms race continues. Soviet doctrine evolves. The concept of crew targeting, ignoring armor to strike the humans inside, becomes embedded in Soviet doctrine and echoes throughout the Cold War. PTRS teams are no longer seen as obsolete relics, but as specialized assets requiring patience, skill, and nerves of steel. By 1944, every Soviet rifle division includes dedicated PTRS platoons trained in long-range engagement of armored vehicles. They operate from elevated positions, concealed hides, and oblique angles. They do not destroy tanks. They disable them, blind them, force crews into impossible choices. The psychological impact is profound. German tank commanders grow cautious. They close hatches tighter, reducing visibility. They avoid predictable routes. They travel with infantry escorts, scanning rooftops and hillsides, not just roads. Fear is a weapon, and the PTRS wields it effectively. After the war, the concept spreads. The Soviet 14.5mm cartridge becomes a standard anti-materiel round. The KPV heavy machine gun, the KSVK sniper rifle, and dozens of other weapons adopt the same caliber. Cold War doctrine embraces the philosophy. Infantry must have tools to challenge armored vehicles, even if they cannot destroy them outright. Disable, delay, disrupt. Force the enemy to slow down, to hesitate, to question whether advancing is worth the risk. Western militaries take note. Decades later, anti-materiel rifles like the Barrett M82 expand the idea, giving infantry the ability to challenge vehicles, radars, and hardened positions worldwide. In the 1980s, the Barrett M82 anti-materiel rifle enters service, firing 50 BMG rounds. Capable of disabling vehicles, radar systems, and hardened positions from extreme range. The weapon is a direct descendant of the PTRS philosophy: precision firepower, allowing infantry to challenge targets far beyond their weight class. Modern conflicts prove the concept repeatedly. In Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, and Ukraine, anti-materiel rifles display vehicles, destroy equipment, and kill combatants from distances that render return fire ineffective. The 14.5mm experiment at Kursk becomes a global blueprint for asymmetric firepower. Asymmetric warfare, precision over power, targeting the human element inside the machine. And it all begins with a 2-meter rifle, a desperate soldier, and an impossible shot. How many innovations are born not from genius, but from having no other choice? Years after the war, a historian interviews a Soviet veteran who operated a PTRS rifle during the Battle of Kursk. The man is old now, hands gnarled with arthritis, hearing mostly gone. He lives in a small apartment in Leningrad, surrounded by photographs of men who did not survive. The historian asks, "Did you feel like a hero?" The veteran is quiet for a long time. Then he shakes his head. "No, we were just trying not to die." "But you stopped the German advance. You disabled tanks that were supposed to be invincible." The veteran looks at the historian with tired eyes. "The rifle stopped the tanks. We just carried it." "But you aimed it. You fired it. You made the impossible shot." The veteran stares at his hands that once gripped a 21-kilogram rifle, hands that absorbed brutal recoil, hands that pulled a trigger knowing the consequences. "I made the shot," he says quietly. "But that does not make me proud. It makes me tired." He pauses. The historian waits. People think war is about machines, tanks, planes, big guns. But machines do not fight. Men fight. Men die. And when you kill a man, even from 400 meters, even through steel, you carry that with you, forever. The historian writes this down. The veteran watches, then speaks again. The rifle did its job. It punched through armor. It stopped tanks. It saved lives. But it did not make the war shorter. It did not make the killing stop. It just helped us survive another day, and then another, until finally the war ended, and we were still alive. Some of us. He leans back in his chair, eyes distant, seeing something the historian cannot. They mocked that rifle, called it useless, a pole with a trigger. But when the tanks came and the line was breaking and there was nothing else, nothing, that rifle was all we had. And it was enough. Not to win, just to survive. The historian asks one final question. Would you do it again? The veteran does not hesitate. Yes, because the alternative was worse. Silence settles over the apartment. Outside, the city hums with life, traffic, voices, the sound of a world rebuilt. Inside, an old man stares at photographs of young men who never grew old. Machines dominate battlefields, but human beings carry the weight long after the engines fall silent. If you found this story valuable, explore the entire World War II Documentary Archives collection to uncover more untold moments of courage, innovation, and sacrifice. History is not just written by the victors. It is remembered by those who refuse to let it fade.